Well, I wanted Mr. Mind, but this will do. Alright, so hi everybody. I'm just gonna do a few relatively short reviews because I'm way behind, and there's a bunch of reviews I've been waiting to do for other people, but everyone's got a lot going on right now. It's just kind of a hectic time of year, so I'm just gonna do them all myself. Fuck it. That was 15 seconds, right? Whatever. So first things first, I'm gonna go with the latest thing I just got out of because it's fresh in my head, Shazam 2, which has been not quite what people have hoped it to be. At least critically. This is another one I feel like kind of falls in the same thing, it was same category as Ant-Man 3 did for me, where it's like, it's perfectly fine. It's not great. It's not as good as the first one. The first one's better. But it's still good. It's like, I still enjoyed it. There's still a lot I got out of it. There's a lot I liked. There's a lot I didn't like. So let's just get right into it. First things first, if we go back to our original Shazam review, we know that I loved it. I thought it was a great film. I thought it was a great use of the character and the property. I thought it was like one of the cases where like an edgier film without trying to be cool about it necessarily. Like, it actually had a darkness to it that didn't overshadow the film. It just added to it. That's what these movies could have done. And I thought Zachary Levi was good at the role in the first one, and he's still good here, although career-wise he's kind of shot himself in the foot. And he's gonna be one of two actors I'm gonna talk about tonight where I was like, well, that's a shame. For those who don't know, Zachary Levi very recently kind of just started saying stupid shit, like kind of coming out as anti-vax, kind of going to, I don't know if he defended ivermectin. I don't think he did. I might be making that one up. But he's also did that. He kind of made fun of Britney Spears over the whole like custody thing, or I forgot the exact term of it. And then he said he was a fan of Jordan Peterson, and he kind of also like ratted out The Rock and a few things about Black Adam. So he's kind of in deep waters right now, and he's not helping his own case. And I'm not saying I support him necessarily after the anti-vaccine. I was like, God damn it. All right. I thought he was one of the good ones, but oh well. That being said, I'm not gonna say now that he revealed himself to be who he is. I'm gonna say everything he's ever done is bad. I'm not gonna be that kind of guy because I can still appreciate I still say like he put in a good performance, he did a good job as his character, but I don't think he's gonna play it again. So we'll see where the franchise goes from here. That being said, the movie itself, Shazam 2, was another one that went to a lot of production problems, largely because of COVID, like Ant-Man 3. So it does suffer from those problems. There are some pacing issues, there are some character issues. But that being said, I feel like the things that matter the most are still pretty well intact. The Shazam family is still a lot of fun. They're all very likable. They're all very relatable. Freddy in this one is a bit more insufferable than the last one by design. Like, that's part of his character arc. There is definitely a kind of iffy, questionable, kind of gross feeling thing that happens with his character because he has a love interest in this one, and there's some stuff that goes on with that I'll talk about in spoilers. I don't want to give anything away right now, but the main core, the main family is still great. I love the foster parents. I kind of wish they were in the movie more, but every time the few scenes they do have, they really make work for them. Just like in the first one, like they do kind of feel like even though they're not in the movie very long, they do feel like the tying knot between everyone. I really like that, and I think it's a really good representation of foster families in general. So I'm really happy to see that. I'm glad that's still intact. The action scenes are still good. I like the way they use Shazam and his powers. I think it's very creative. I think the direction they take character, both forms of Billy, make a lot of sense and is a natural evolution from the first movie. So let's just go over the plot really, really quick without going to spoilers. We'll get into that in a little bit because stuff I liked and didn't like then involves spoilers. So I'll get into that in a bit. So for those who don't know, Shazam 2, obviously it takes place 2 years after the events of the first film. Billy Batson is getting closer to 18, which means he's getting close to aging out of the foster system, which is making him really nervous because he's finally feels like he has the family that he's always wanted. But now he's terrified of losing the family, so he's being kind of the control, like he's trying to keep everyone together. He's trying to control everybody as much as he can, even though everyone's kind of starting to go in their own separate ways because they're getting older. Like Freddy wants to do superheroing by himself now. Mary, who has a bigger role here, which I like to see because I feel like she was one character that kind of got done dirty a little bit in the last film. She gets a bigger role here. She kind of she wants to go to college, but she stayed behind for them. Like Dolores, I think her name is getting older, so obviously she has her own things kind of going for her. And everyone's just kind of evolving and growing in their own way. and it's causing Billy to freak the fuck out. So he, like, the movie is very clearly just about imposter syndrome, about feeling out of place and being afraid to lose the things you've gained, or being afraid to lose the people that mean a lot to you after you finally found them. And all those themes involving that element, I think, play really, really well. I think the heart of the first film is still intact, although it was done better in the first film. Or at the very least, it was more consistent in the first film. I think all the that thematic element works really well, and I think when it focuses on that, the movie as a whole works well. Particularly with a couple scenes in the third act, which which tugged in my heartstrings. So I was like, okay, it's doing something right. While not everything about me perfect, and I'm not gonna say it's like a great movie, I do say like there is enough here for me to say it is a good successor, if not it, but not great necessarily. So while all this is happening, their lives are upended by the daughters of Atlas, who are these magical gods whose powers are taken by the Shazam wizard, who used the staff to take their powers. But since Billy broke the staff and just kind of left it there, it's reclaimed in a museum. The daughters of Atlas find it, they get it, and they use it to start taking the powers back from the Shazam family. And also doing some evil stuff, like as supervillains ought to do. From that point, I think it's Lucy Liu, I want to say, and Helen Mirren are the two main baddies in this here. And very quickly about this before I get into spoilers, Helen Mirren's always great, and she's kind of fun, and you can tell she's not necessarily bringing her A game here, but she still has screen presence. So she's still doing what she still works, and for the most part, when she gets to be the villain and intimidating and all that kind of stuff, she does well. Lucy Liu kind of sucks. That is kind of the one major negative I will give this movie, is that Lucy Liu as a villain is bad. I don't even know why, because Lucy Liu's a dependable actress, but for some reason she's just not doing it in this one. She's really, I don't know if she's either phoning it in, or she's chewing too much scenery, or whatever the fuck. But it just not working in any meaningful way. And yeah, it is Lucy Liu. Okay. But I feel like I do need to give special props to I'm gonna butcher his name, Jimon Hansuo, who's the wizard. I think he gets much more pronounced role in here, and he's really good. He's having a good time with it, and I like the expanded role they gave him. It makes sense. It ties well with everybody. Everyone gets good chemistry with him, so I was again, happy to see that. And so all that ties in together with dragons eventually, and fairy, and not fairy, fantasy creatures that come up, and this isn't a spoiler, it's in the trailer, and leads to a big bombastic finish, which is fun to watch. So that's in the broad strokes, and again, for the most part, I think it's perfectly fine. And I feel like that's one main issue I have with not just pop culture discussions nowadays, but especially involving superhero movies, is it just feels like nothing's allowed to be fine. It feels very binary. If I were to give this movie a number, I'd give it a 6 or a 7. But it's either has to be oh my god, this is amazing, or if it's not even anything close to that, it's dog shit, or at least by hate bait YouTube standards. And that makes the whole discourse around these films really fucking exhausting. Which is apparently a sentiment felt by the director, who is not showing up on the David F. Sandberg, who is very much publicly said that one thing I'm looking forward to now I'm done with these movies is to stop talking about superhero movies, because it is exhausting. The people who either really love, or in this the one that's more popular right now, which is to really just fucking hate these things and want it to fail, is just fucking exhausting, and fucking insufferable. And it's the kind of discourse that I just don't want to engage in, as when I deliberately don't engage in that stuff, because I feel like it's a waste of time, and it just an insult to a lot of people who work very hard on these products. Not that I haven't before, but it just feels like right now it really is just fucking everywhere, and it's too easy to fall into that trap, and I hate it. I think it's really just toxic and gross. Because again, you're allowed to or not or hate a movie, but it's more like the discourse around it nowadays has gotten so volatile, it just feels like there's no place for neutrality. And I know it's not universally true. Like, a lot of this bullshit happens on Twitter and YouTube, which is like, what, maybe 10% of the population? So, like, this is also an opinion of someone who is perpetually online. So there's also that context take with it as well. When you take, like, talk to, like, normal people who don't spend a lot of time on Twitter and YouTube, most people will say, like, yeah, it was fine. But if you're on YouTube like me and you're watching some asshole in his car talk about a movie, you're probably in the always online phase of things, so you probably hear a lot of this crap too. Anyway, I digress. What I'm trying to say here is, again, this movie's okay. Like, if I had to give it a number, I'd give it a solid 6 or 7. And I think the important things that it needed to nail still work. I'm disappointed it didn't go with Mr. Mind as the main villain for this, because I really want to see just see what the fuck they can do with a psychic talking caterpillar. And, like, spoiler alert, he does show up in an end credit scene. Who knows if that'll pay off at this point, because the problem with Shazam as a property is the fact that it is a wish fulfillment fantasy about a child who gets turned to a superhero. But the problem is actor's age, and that's already a present problem in this film, where it's like, yeah, Billy Batson's all grown up at this point. Where do you go from here? Can you even make a third movie? Because they'd be in their 20s by that point, you'd have to imagine. So the question becomes, like, do they go forward with this one, or do they do a soft reboot now that James Gunn has taken the wheel? We don't know yet. We're gonna find out. But I'll be curious to see if they bring Zachary Levi back. And like I said, he's not bad in the movie. I think he does a good job as his character. I think he and the actor who plays the child Billy kind of match more personality-wise than they did in the first one. Not that they necessarily bothered me in the first one, because I always kind of wrote it off as like, hey, you're gonna act a little funky when you just can turn into like an adult with like Superman powers at any given moment. You're just gonna act different during that time. So, but that being said, I feel like it meshes well enough. So from this point, I feel like I've said as much as I can without going to spoilers. So, spoilers from here on out. It's fine. I'd wait for it to go on streaming. So anyway, spoiler alert. The biggest problem I have with this movie is really the fact that Lucy Liu is the main villain. And because the plot twist of this is that Freddy gets a love interest in the form of this girl named Anne, but it turns out that's shocker, which, like, again, if you couldn't figure this out right away, then you should probably go see more movies. Shocker, it turns out she's also one of the sisters of8tlus, so she's also one in this plot, but their goal is to get, like, the seed of the Tree of Life or something like that, some MacGuffin, to restore their dying world, because when the wizard took their powers, it also basically condemned them to their realm, which is dying. So they wanted to get the apple from the Rock of Eternity, which has helped, like, restore this magical tree, which was supposed to bring their world back to life. But Lucy Liu wants revenge on humanity, blah, 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 blah. Helen Mirren's like, whoa, like, chill the fuck out, Lucy Liu. Like, what the hell are you doing? Lucy goes, how dare you? You die too, stay. And then Anne, who is, like, kind of manic pixie dream girl kind of vibes, just gets turned mortal for a little while. That's how she gets out of the picture for a little bit. And then Lucy Liu rides a wooden dragon, which does look pretty fucking cool. And domes up Philadelphia with the intention of planting the tree and inevitably destroying the world. Meanwhile, at this point, she's successfully taken away all the other powers of the Shazam family except for Billy Batson. So he has to overcome his imposter syndrome, realize that he's accepted by his family regardless of whether or not he's agent of the foster system, which is a really sweet scene. I really like that scene. And that his family's going to accept him no matter what, and that he can save the day. So, yeah, Lucy Liu as a villain sucks. Again, ironically very wooden, considering that she rides a wooden dragon. And I don't know if that's the fault of the script or the acting or a little bit of both, but either way, just not working. And it's disappointing because, like, Helen Mirren can make a shitty script work. We've seen her do it. So it's more like, why would you kill out the most charismatic villain in your movie that you have to give it to the one who just doesn't want to be here? And maybe Helen Mirren doesn't want to be here either. I don't know. But either way, it's like she's still, like, with the minimal effort she put in here, it's still more than what Lucy Liu's given us. So that just felt like the bad call to me. Because the action scenes that she does have with Billy Batson are actually pretty cool. And she just does naturally command a lot of screen presence. So yeah, just a bad call. The parts that get a little icky is when, and they do make a comment on it, but also kind of do that thing where they do nothing about it. Is that Anne is like 6,000 years old and Freddy is still a child. Legally a child, and so like there's a point where she reveals to Freddy that she's 6,000-year-old right before she kisses him, and his foster parents make a point like, well, this seems really inappropriate now, which, like, yeah, they're right, because he's still a child, but they still get together in the end, so like, okay, I guess we're just gonna licorice pizza this? Kinda gross. Did not like that. And I get, like, visually they're supposed to be around the same age, but, like, no. Still not. Still very much not. Very Twilighty now that I think about it. Except reverse the genders, which I guess now makes it okay. Except it doesn't. And it's just a gross double standard. I can go on a rant about this, but I'm going to stop myself there before I get really too into it. It's kind of gross. I didn't like it. Ugh. Outside of that, what else was there? And there were a lot of parts about this movie that it does kind of make me think, like, I don't get why this movie's getting the hate that it's getting, other than the fact that people are just really rooting for superhero movies to fail right now. Again, for some reason, it feels like it's like popular thing equals bad, and it just, again, the discord around that is just fucking exhausting. Because, like, there's a sequence in this movie, like, one of the big things is, like, the little girl, Dolores, or whatever the fuck her name is. I'm gonna try to figure it out, because it's gonna bug me if I don't. And it's not popping up right away, which is making me having to vamp, and I hate vamping. Come on, work with me, you son of a bitch. Darla! Her name is Darla. Darla is, like, obsessed with unicorns, and she has the idea when all these magical creatures start coming up, like goblins and minotaurs and trolls and cyclopses and, like, all kinds of stuff because of the Tree of Life, which gets planted in the Philadelphia baseball stadium. She gets an idea, it's like, well, fantasy creatures must be here, there must also be unicorns. So we should get unicorns to help us. And this did lead to my my favorite lines of the film, where at this point the wizard is hanging out with them, and Darla has this idea, I love unicorns, and with a straight face, the wizard goes like, they do not love you, which is kind of fun, which made me laugh quite a bit. But, like, that being said, so, like, but in this universe, like, unicorns are these evil, demonic creatures that she wins over with Skittles, which, by the way, Skittles must have been a fortune for this product placement, but that's just the nature of the business. But the Skittles, like, get the unicorns on their side, so there's about these, like, demonic fucking unicorns fighting, like, fantasy creatures. I'm like, what the why did people not like this? This is fucking awesome! Granted, we could use more of that, but it was still cool, and I don't get the problem. But anyway, so, like, stuff like that bothered me. There's some pacing issues in the first act that a little clunky, and, like, some of the plot beats don't necessarily work. Again, I think a lot of it's just because Lucy Liu's not a very good villain, and she does command a lot of time, and during all that. And that's not entirely her fault. Like I said, the stuff with Freddy is also kind of frustrating, and, like, just annoying after a while. The Shazam family makes a lot of very stupid mistakes, except that one I can let go because that's clearly part of the intention. The whole point is that Billy Batson has not embraced the wisdom of Solomon, which they point out very explicitly. That's what they're doing. And so, like, he's again, just feels like he's not up to the task of being this superhero or this leader of a superhero team, and it's just not working. But then, of course, they have, like, the whole, like, wisdom comes from your heart. You know what you need to do when you really think about it, or, like, when you really feel it, and that's what ends up saving the day. But up till then, they make a lot of stupid mistakes that they really should have seen coming, especially Mary. Mary has no excuse. But, yeah, all that's to say is that it could have been a lot better. Yeah, I think I don't know how much of this was the original vision or how much of it was fucked around because of COVID and the fact that they changed things around because apparently Dwayne Johnson didn't want to be part of the Shazam movies, and so they had to rework some stuff. or how much production issue had to come into play. I'm sure there's a lot of behind-the-scenes mess with this movie that's going to make things much clearer later on. But that being said, the product we have now is still perfectly serviceable as is, and I had a good time with it. I don't think I'll ever watch it again, but that being said, for what it is, I think it's decent. It's a streamer, and yeah, I think that's all I really have to say about it. So, I'm gonna take a break here for a bit, and I'm gonna talk about Creed 3 in a second, so bye.